Hello and welcome to episode 2 of our holiday marketing masterclass. If you missed episode 1 last week with Emily Pfeiffer from Forrester Research, you should absolutely check that one out. But this week we have a power-packed episode. Ryan Phelan and Chris Marriott talking about segmentation and holiday marketing strategies. Ryan, CEO of RPE Origin, for over 2 decades, Ryan's created and led innovative marketing strategies for high-growth SaaS and Fortune 250 companies. His experience and history in digital marketing has shaped his approach and innovative orchestration of data and customer activation strategies for Adestra, Axiom, Responses, Sears and Kmart, Blue Hornet, Info USA, and now RPE Origin. He's a resident of Dallas and was a 2023 recipient of Thought Leader of the Year Award from the ANA. Ryan, thank you so much for joining us here today.
Thrilled to be here. Thanks, Nick.
And Chris Marriott, president and founder of Email Connect, who's a veteran of digital marketing, including over a decade in email marketing. Chris is an experienced digital marketer, passion for connecting leading marketers with the right marketing technology partners and platforms. He is president and founder of Email Connect. Chris, thanks for joining us here today.
Oh, it's great to be here. I appreciate always like joining you and Ryan in a conversation. Though I think next time we have to flip the intros because Ryan's was so much more impressive than mine, and the comparison is so much more obvious when I come after him, or I'm gonna have to write more or win more awards.
I can lend you my copywriter, and
maybe
she can
copywriter.
She can make that look great.
Astute viewers will remember
I need that
session. Astute viewers remember our previous session where I even included your tenure at Dartmouth College. So that was the abridged.
Right, give me a little boost there. Yeah.
Yeah.
And actually, I realized it is old because veteran of 10 years. I mean, Ryan, you and I mean, 10 years. I mean, I'm a veteran of almost 20 years, as I know Ryan is. I mean, that's wow.
I was going to say 10. I think we were working together at the Relevance.
10 years ago, we were working together. Yeah.
Exactly. We were leading analysts in the space. But let's get into the topic at hand today, because it is an important topic for retail e-commerce marketers, specifically the holiday season. We are in the holiday marketing planning, executing season, or approaching it. And maybe first question for you guys. Are we executing in the holiday? When does the holiday marketing season start for customers that you guys work with? And has that changed, or does it keep kind of creeping up as it seems when you're shopping at Target?
So big retail started holiday shopping February 29th, 28th, end of February. Right. When I was on the big retail side and clients along my route, you got a month and a half off from Christmas to initial concepts, designs, pros, cons, all that stuff. And so what most consumers don't realize is that most of the product that's available for holiday is ordered in Q1 and Q2. So holiday starts as soon as the year starts. Now, for most clients that aren't in big box retail with massive inventories to have to think through and logistics, it starts about now. June, most clients will use the June, July, August kind of slow period to start to put in place. What worked last year? What do we want to do this year? What's our goals? How's the year tracking? It's a little bit closer in because the reality is a lot more realistic. So we're definitely talking to all of our clients about what they're doing for holiday. We're in planning sessions with a number of them to get them ready and to differentiate. It's a fun time of year for us because we get to sit around and go, okay, what brainstorm can we come up with? What new thing can we come up with that hasn't been done before, or we haven't done it, or how can we improve on what we did last year? So it's a fun point of the year to be able to kind of whiteboard different ideas.
Yeah, no, it makes very good sense. And Chris, I wonder, from just a technology perspective and having your tech stack in order, you want to be humming during the holidays, I assume.
Great point, Nick. I was going to say, and Ryan and I talk about this all the time because of Ryan's expertise in migration, and what I do, if you don't know, folks, is manage RFPs. So brands hire my company to help them in the vendor selection. And what's, the fourth quarter for sure is code lockdown at every place. So you're not going to be migrating to a new platform. You're not even going to be, ideally, you're not even going to be knee deep in an RFP at that time because you're so busy doing your email. So ideally, in an ideal world, holiday planning in a MarTech transition would start about 18 months out. It's not even that year. It's like, how do we build in time to select a new vendor and to do migration to that vendor where the cutover doesn't happen, at the end of Q3 or sometime in Q4. We've got to be ready to go as soon as possible after Q4, depending when our contract is done. But it's that sort of planning that I think brands are more and more running up against issues because very often they don't give themselves, particularly when they run an RFP themselves, they don't give themselves enough time. And for that, and they have no idea how long the migration is going to take. And that, in many ways, as Ryan knows, will take longer than the RFP itself, which wasn't the case 10 years ago. But now it's absolutely the case.
Right. Yeah. Right.
So if you're thinking of doing, sorry to cut you off, but if you're thinking that you need to switch platforms, you're now planning for Christmas 2025. Christmas 2024 out the door. And Christmas 2025 would be pushing it depending on if when you get going. But that's exactly.
Right. No, that makes good sense. That makes good sense. And so one goal for us certainly is having our tech stack in a solid place to prep for holidays and get ready. Just from a customer or customers of RPE or Email Connect during the holidays, the goal for most e-commerce retailers, they're making a bunch of their overall revenue during that time. So I'm assuming top goal is just top line revenue, or are there other things?
No, it's feeding in top line revenue, right?
Yep.
So the pressure from the previous 9 months feeds into to the crazy of the last 3, right? So generally you're walking into Q4, into the holiday season with what your nut was at the beginning of the year to hit in that quarter and to make up any losses you've had in the previous 9 months. So there's a tremendous amount of pressure. And one of the reasons we see email volumes increase year over year this year is going to be a lot different because you have election season scattered in there. So that's one of the things that has, regardless of what side you're on, that's one of the things that has gone into strategic planning is the first part of November, where you would generally see the last part of October, first part of November, where you would generally see retailers start to ramp up their holiday messaging, is interfered with the number of political messages that are going to be in the inbox. And so it's really colored the strategy that people have to look for about what the narrow window of time was. And Chris mentioned this earlier. You have a tech lockdown that typically happens somewhere between August or October 1st and October 20th, right? And bigger organizations or earlier where there's no code, it's a code freeze, there's no changes and whatever. So when you put the math together for this year, you've got strategic planning that starts in February. Through October, you got to have everything done by the time the tech lockdown goes, and then you got an election lockout, or at least an effect in the market. It's a really interesting year to see what happens in terms of how retailers react to those conditions.
Yeah. Ryan makes a great point, which I hadn't even thought of, but that's because I don't work with the types of clients he does and type of work. But the inbox is already jammed during the holidays. But to Ryan's point, there's going to be the element of all those political emails that don't operate under canned spam. They're sharing your email. God help you if you give your email to just one group on whatever political side you're on, they're all going to get it. And So that's a battle you fight. And the other thing that I would add is, um, by and large, your experimentation should be locked down as well as you get into
Yeah.
Q4. In other words, you should use the prior 9 months to do all the testing and testing of segments, testing of tactics, testing of this or that, so that you really know what you're going to do in Q4. Now, with the growth of AI, and I don't mean generative AI, I mean AI that can create segments on the fly, that can do predictive modeling on the fly, that can do product recommendations on the fly. A lot of that, what would in the past would be called experimentation, can be put in the hands of AI if you've got the right platform that has the AI built into it, foundational AI built into it. So you don't have to, you don't have to do as much testing because the AI is going to figure that out. So I think that'll take pressure off brands, but that's very dependent on what platform you're on.
Yep. No, it's a good point. Great point. And you mentioned segmentation. Ryan, you mentioned increasing the cadence around the holidays. In terms of segmentation in our audiences going into the holidays, do you guys recommend adjusting kind of segmentation strategies, or is it kind of just extending business as usual and or optimize test results from the previous several months, as you mentioned, Chris?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think your base level BAU kind of segments are solid, right? You usually have taken the last year, 2 years, whatever, your customer segments. I think in the holiday time you introduce new segments. Holiday time is a great time for one-time buyers. And so what's your strategy of engagement for the last 12 months to that segment? How do you bring that up? How do you dive into an omni-channel kind of a look where you're using social and mobile and different things to affect that user? I think also what we see is that the nuance of micro segments takes advantage of dynamic content inside of emails. So I still use my base segment, but I may bring in this adjacent segment and say, okay, I want the messaging to be different to, in the same vein, one-time buyers from last year, right? And so that may populate into secondary or tertiary product suggestions in the same kind of category. If I buy the same thing for my dad every year, I may want to include something because I've seen that consistency. So I think by and large, BAU segments stick. I think that most mature retailers will use dynamic content and have some micro segments that are specific around holiday that they can derive from last holiday's behavior.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. I think, one of the things to avoid, and which is why working with pitch for Ryan, working with an agency is the behavior of your good customers the first 9 months of the year is oftentimes quite different than their behavior in the final 3 months of the year. And you don't want to have your BAU segments distorted by that. You don't want that to then overflow into Q1 where suddenly you think they're this entirely different thing. So the critical thing, I think, is to separate what, holiday behavier in your core segments from the rest of the year behavior.
Absolutely right.
And it's not easy. I mean, I'm glad I don't do that, but I think it's important to do.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. I mean, people's wallets get bigger.
Right. They buy for other people. They buy stuff they never would buy during the year for themselves or for their family.
And their adjacencies expand, right? If I buy something for my father, I'm my wallet is bigger, so I may buy, he's a golfer, right? I may buy him a new putter or a new training aid, right? But at the same time, if the site is doing the job or email is doing its job, I may add on a sleeve of his favorite golf balls or some funky tee that says something obscene on it or something like that, right? And those kind of things, those adjacent purchases have to be taken into account because you've got stocking stuffers, you've got Hanukkah, you've got you look at
Right.
Hanukkah, you got days of gifts, right? And so it's very different, Chris, to your point. It's a very different buying behavior, but if you use the data effectively from the last season, you can predict that and hopefully market to it.
Yeah, well, right. Bring the holiday segments back. One
Yeah.
of the things as you were talking, I was thinking, I mean, one of the key pieces of data, and data drives everything we do, is if a brand looked at where purchases were going and
Yes.
disassociated purchases made in the fourth quarter that are going to an address they haven't seen for 12 months.
Right.
That's when they go, okay, I'm not going to, this isn't going to drive, I'm not going to use this in predictive modeling, future behavior the rest of the year for this customer. And that just again becomes being able to manage that data in real time and having an ESP that can can store that data, not just what they bought, what they paid, but where it went.
Makes great sense. And we're going to follow up question on that maybe. And we actually dug into that a little bit during the last masterclass session where we were talking about just how during the holidays, people coming to the website can have very different preferences. They could be a bargain shopper, year round,
Yeah.
but now they're buying, to your point, more luxury stuff. But question for you both. Any tips for the audience on how to ID that? And one good one is capture that destination address and leverage that in kind of the decisioning. But any other, I don't know, surveys, any other keys to identifying either gift giving preferences or just customer preferences?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think there's two things, and Chris nailed it, right? Shipping address different than billing address is completely valid and used. Gift wrapped items, if you have that available in the cart, you can easily identify that. Return gift receipts, that's another way. To the consumer, that's a feel good. That's a great thing for the consumer to have. For the retailer, it's like I've identified a purchase that's a gift, and I'm going to mark that in your persona. The other thing is in your creative templates, right? So making room for a secondary consideration. So gift options, gift ideas, if you can, and to really use that in the most effective way, if you can power the products in that to things that they bought before in category, then what you're doing is subliminally capturing or trying to activate, I bought golf stuff for dad. So in my featured, gift ideas, there's golf stuff. Why is there golf stuff? Because I bought it for dad last year, and I know because the shipping address was different or whatever, right? And it was outside of my purchase behavior, which is the next way to find out if you're doing gift. If you have a consistent way to find that out in the account. So, for example, I share my Amazon account with my sister. She's an interior designer. Alexa always asks me if I need to reorder, and she's going to perk up, if I need to reorder a ceiling fan because my sister orders them all the time, right? Alexa thinks it's a recurring item. You have to look at the integrity of your data to ensure that what your hypothesis is spelling out into the message. So there's a lot of considerations, not just saying, oh, if I got this, then I got that. You have to make sure that the organization of your data is going to lead you to the right result.
Yeah, I got nothing to add. I think Ryan nailed it.
Makes good sense. Maybe with that, with the data that we have, ideally, some gift data we're generating, some based on previous tests we've been executing off of the. Does it make sense? How do we balance our personalization efforts? I think many of us espouse driving as highly personalized messages as possible. Those messages that are more personalized are more engaged with. I think we've proven that over time. I believe so. If not, you guys tell me. But during the holidays, does that kind of strategy shift? Do we personalize maybe a little less to account for some product discovery, or do we try to personalize, or do we
More.
continue and personalize more and leverage some of that zero party data? What are your thoughts on that? And how much do we balance maybe personalizing versus optimizing our business, like pushing what's in
Yeah.
inventory, or
You know what? This is the Super Bowl for a reason, right? For retailers, you got to bring your A game. You got to bring everything you got. It's not about personalizing a little. It's about personalizing a lot. It's about really putting your technology to bear to the end consumer's benefit and to your benefit in the downstream. But this is not a time where you hold back. This is a time where you throw everything in, because to this point, you tested 9 months, you tested for 6 months, you got your playbook, you execute on the playbook. And yes, the organization is going to have, if I think about major retail, every day had a featured product, right? But regardless of the featured product, if I sell the featured product to Mary and Mary just bought one a month ago, I've wasted the message. And so your segmentation, your use of personalization at scale, and that's not just first name or any of that crap, it's actually saying this widget is for Mary, is for, is not for Mary, and to be able to put in something that Mary wants. And so most big retailers understand that the primary object that's on sale is a construct of print, of TV, where you have locked assets and it's broad media. But you get to email, it's pinpoint. I'm talking to Mary in her inbox where she gets emails from her mom and dad and all that stuff. So that has to adapt to your primary push.
There is, I mean, Nick, you make a point, and I don't have an answer to it. There is, I, the brand, know what Mary wants based on past purchases.
Yeah.
But neither me, the brand, nor Mary may know what Mary's
Correct.
father wants. So there's a degree of both personalization to Mary, but
randomized shit.
Yeah, or user browsing behavior to begin to begin to see, is she looking in glassware, Scotch glasses or a decanter?
Yep.
Okay, there's a clue what she, then you get fair, but or is she looking in cookware? So I think there's a bit of ongoing personalization that frankly it isn't really easy, but we're looking, how many times have we gone ourselves to a website and say, I like the brand, I have no freaking idea what I'm going to get my father, my mother, my sister, and hopefully I can get there without too much next page, because that's certain sites. It's just you see 14 pages of options, and it's bang, bang, bang. And this is where the site personalization becomes important too.
Yeah, no, I would agree. It's an orchestration, right?
Yes,
not to overuse a term, but it really is an orchestration in that adjacent purchase that's not for you in your consideration set. You may have a featured product, but it may not go in the hero. It may go in a smaller module. But Chris is absolutely right. You have to account for self-purchase and gift purchase.
Yeah.
Yep. And I will tell you too, on that, it's there's nothing worse than a highly personalized email that goes out trying to sell a product that's out of stock, or so just having that, and that can that happens to the best of us. I see it to some, or happens frequently among some of the biggest brands, and that sort of just connection between the front end personalization, the back end, the customer data, the product catalog, and having those in sync. Obviously behooves around the holidays, because people are buying.
It does, and the email marketer has to be closely linked to the product team, right? We used to, and this is 15 years ago, right? When I was on the front lines, we would have a data feed that was exported from the web group to the email group. We would upload that dynamically. It would populate or take out things that were out of stock, right? But it was a manual process. when I get emails where I click on it and it's already out of stock and I just got the email 5 seconds ago, I'm like, okay, you're not coordinated that way. You need to be. So, but, and then salespeople pick up the phone and go, hey, can we help? But uh, you have to avoid that out of stock message because you wasted an intent action. And if you don't replace it with something, you lost a sale.
Yeah. And that's really where, if you're the email marketing team, you got to keep track of the things that give you headaches this holiday season. And you have to think, would a platform upgrade take that away? I mean, this inventory thing is a perfect example. If your ESP only takes in inventory data on a batch basis on a 24 hours, 48 hours, it's going to happen that somebody's going to get it out of stock.
Yeah.
There are ESPs that can take that and streaming in real time, and they'll know, and you won't make that mistake. Or the likelihood of making that mistake goes almost to zero. So again, keep track of the things that cause you pain, and then ask yourself at the end of the holiday season, how much of these are platform driven, and how long have I been on this platform, and is there another platform that can make these pains go away?
And Chris, I know when you do RFPs, you're asking those questions. What have been your pain points in holiday?
Exactly.
What have been your pain points with the current platform or the current setup? It's not always the platform. Sometimes it's
it could be process.
Often.
But it's about voicing that during the RFP process, maybe not as a major use case, but as a question and a questionnaire, right? And I know Chris always talks to his clients, and I'm giving now a commercial for Chris. He's always talking to his clients about, let's think about the major points in your life cycle, in your calendar. What are the things that drive you crazy and cost more time? Let's ask vendors if they can alleviate that, because then that goes into the win-loss column, it goes into a cost-benefit analysis, and it goes into this is what we gain, which is what every email marketer is looking for in a new platform.
Yeah. Thank you, Ryan.
Makes great sense.
What he said.
Yeah, indeed. I'm with you too. We talked a moment ago about one and done buyers, buying gifts, segmenting. We mentioned kind of maintaining the segments, but are there specific segments we should allocate more resources towards potentially during the holidays? Are there some audiences where we should allocate more resources? And I'm thinking maybe new users, frequent purchasers, lapse purchasers, or high spenders. What are there some audiences? And it depends, could be a good answer to this too. But from your perspective and customers that you guys work with, are there some audiences where we should really just be focused during the holiday?
Yeah, I think most companies are going to look at everybody. I need to market to everybody, right? In reality, everybody is not anybody, right? I think that you have a segment of customers that have never been active to your knowledge, right? Just because they haven't opened an email or clicked on an email doesn't mean they're inactive. It means that maybe email isn't the right channel for them. Now, to your question, what I want to focus on, my biggest one is where I get the benefit of all the external media that a company runs. So net new subscribers on list, net new purchasers. Can I get a second sale? Can I get an increased sale? Can I use that transactional email to benefit me, right? So I'm going after and optimizing all my transactional emails to try and capture as much sales as I can. Your high value customers, your loyal customers, your new within 30 days, win back tried customers. I don't know that I would put a lot of effort into that unless but out of that attrition group, I would peel off the people that are tried 12 months, because those are the people that purchased one time last year. So what have you done to that? But listen, I think every company opens up the floodgates and says, we're marketing to everybody. The marketer needs to take that as takes a subset of that and go, I'm going to be smart and market to people I know that want to spend money to spend it in a differentiated message at a segment level. because there's ways that you talk to, and Nick, you mentioned, right? Value purchasers, always looking for a discount. Great. My message to them is 40% off, 30% off, 20% off, whatever. In fashion, we know that there's people that buy because it looks good on them or they like the logo. That's going to maybe take away a discount. I don't need necessarily a discount to sell. So your selling strategy to those segments change as much as you use them. A lot of retailers give up margin for just the cheap sale. And it's like if you really use the data to your advantage, I don't need to give up 40% to my high value loyal customers. I may need to just give up 20 or maybe nothing at all.
Yeah, I always think I agree with you. But if I found out that a brand had given other people a 40 or 50% coupon and gave me nothing because I was the best customer, I'd be teed off. But
yes,
we
don't have fair lending. We don't have fair lending rules in retail, thank God. You know.
Anyway, one of the things that Ryan touched on, and I think is important, is first-time buyers during holiday are great for your bottom line, but they're potentially dangerous to your reputation. And by that, I mean one and dones, as Ryan referred to earlier. Yeah. And one and dones are much more likely if you've incented them to do the one. In other words, 20% off to give us your email, or something like that. And they can quickly overwhelm your delivery number and lower your delivery numbers if you're not careful. So, and that's, I love what Ryan said. Just because they bought one, don't treat them like your best customers the rest of the holiday season, because all you're going to do is damage your reputation. Because many of them, maybe the majority of those first-time buyers aren't going to buy again, maybe ever. And you need to ease them into your rotation and not instantly assume because they bought that you can fire off 10 emails a day to them just like you are to your best customers, and you're going to get the same behavior. You're not. So ease first-time buyers, which is hard. I mean, everyone, a new buyer, 10 emails a day. But the damn, if your deliverability numbers go down over the course of the holidays, I think that's a bigger downside. Even it doesn't have to be. I'm not even buying a lot. A couple of 0.1, 0.2, 0.3. That probably will have a bigger revenue hit than the couple of the continued additional sales you get by inundating these first-time buyers.
Yeah,
it's a great point. And as Ryan mentioned earlier, you're going to be sending more. Your volumes are going to be spiking over the holidays already.
Yeah.
Which I wonder. I mean, this is the first big holiday season post Google Yahoo changes. That those. I mean, so we're going to want to be making sure we don't have complaint issues during the holidays too. And so getting some of those lapsed, being careful around who you're sending to as you're increasing that volume is probably extra critical this holiday season.
Yeah. I mean, you've got to start your day coming in and looking at the metrics, all of the metrics. Hopefully in the last, year, 2 years, hopefully this is a dashboard that consolidates all the disparate pieces of information from different stack pieces, is consolidated into one report that is easy to understand and obtain, right? And in my days, I always started the day looking at the numbers, all of them, and look for the trend lines. I didn't react because something went out of whack one day. I looked at, is it a trend? It's an occasion if it happens one, but does it happen again and again? And just practice it logically, but know your numbers. The email marketer at holiday has to know those off the top of their head. I was in so many stand-ups where I would think I would never get called on something, and I got called on by an SVP about, hey, what did we do yesterday, and what was our conversion rate in email? And if you didn't have the answer, you looked like an idiot and would be laughed out of the room. And it's, never be caught off guard during holiday. The biggest time of the year, every coach in the NFL knows exactly what the numbers are upside and down the other. And that's what you have to be.
Yeah.
I like it.
During holiday, I used to carry around the numbers for the entire period on this long spreadsheet. The piece of paper was like 3 foot long. and I would bed it up. And I didn't go to a meeting without those numbers. And if somebody asked me, I would just enroll this and say, okay, our trend lines are here and blah, blah, blah. And after a while, people left me alone because they knew I knew my numbers and I didn't have a problem. But I can remember walking around with the campaign calendar about what emails were going out one day and what the performance was for the season starting to today.
I love it. I love it. No, that's great. Great stuff for sure. Knowing the numbers is absolutely critical, and increasingly, fighting for budget in the email. Fighting for a shrinking percentage of a growing percentage of a shrinking overall digital budget.
Yeah.
Email, we got to be making the case across all owned channels, I would say.
Yeah.
Versus the paid guys. Question for you guys during I think when we talk about audiences, when we talk about who we're sending to, triggered mail is always a big component of many programs for e-commerce retailers. Around what role do they play around the holidays, and are there things that we should be doing around just getting them set up or orchestrated or optimized? Or are there things we should be doing thinking about re-triggered messages?
So the stat I always have seen in every retailer I've worked in is that your triggered journeys and transactional, so the things you don't touch, they just run, right? Generally makes up 60%, 50 to 60% of your overall revenue, while representing about 3 to 4% of your overall volume. That's from the email channel.
Yeah.
So when we talk about having intelligent journeys, triggered emails, that's why, is because during holiday, it is the money tree that just keeps on giving. So you have to have, use your program as an example, do the math. What do you get from automation? What do you get from BAU? BAU being promotional. If you're not in that 50 to 60% range, if you're in a 30%, you have a lot of work to do because there's a lot of upside. And so during the holiday, that is what can save your keister, is those automated messages that you put into play. And you still have time, right? You can come up with some really smart automations and put them into play today. You don't have to have them fully baked. You can have them in place, but now is the time to fill that gap if you see that you have a deficiency. And if you need ideas, call me, because our strategists will tell you like 10 off the top of their head over coffee.
There you go.
There we go.
That made me think, even those first-time buyers we were talking about, put them in a journey before you just put them in BAU. Put them in a journey.
You should.
Yeah, that can help you understand their future intent. The only thing I'll add to this, I'll go back to the sort of vendor tech side of things, is to Ryan's point, highly valuable, but it's a pain to set them up. If you have to go to a vendor other than your ESP, because your ESP can't do it, you got to go to a third-party vendor, or because it's so complicated at your ESP, your IT's got to get in. Again, begin to think about, maybe I need to make a switch, because there are vendors out there that you, the marketer, can easily set up triggers and automated campaigns and journeys without any intervention from your IT, from your ESP, or having to go tin cupping at a third party to do it for you.
It's got to be easy to set up and easy to understand the numbers.
Yeah.
You've got to be able to look at a dashboard or look at a report and know what each email in the automation did and how valuable it is. I used to have guys. I had a guy that was Andrew Kordick, well known in this industry, well loved, a phenomenal thought leader. His job at Sears, he was in charge of all the marketing automation that was out there on the consumer brand for Sears and Kmart. He had this big binder full of things that he updated every quarter about what every email that we sent on an automated fashion made, what the conversion rate, opens, clicks, and the whole 9 yards. That was his job, and he hit it out of the park. And that's the kind of focus you need, is somebody that's really focused on that.
A binder of automations.
A binder of automations.
I like it. I love it. No, that's really great stuff. Let's get ready to wrap it up here. In terms of it's now July. We're pumping towards back to school. We're pumping towards the holidays, and one thing we didn't mention is the international nature of the holidays. The holidays do ebb and flow at slightly different times, whether we're targeting audiences in the US or India or yeah,
Yeah.
across the globe. But for many of us, the big one is kicks off maybe back to school and then kind of runs through Christmas and the holidays around there. But if you're a e-commerce, what advice do you have for our viewers? It's end of July. If we could say top three things maybe from each of you, what would you kick into now after we're closing our webinar window? What should we be focused on now to be ready then?
Sure. So I do three things. Number one, like I just said, I would take a look at your automations. I would take a look at journeys, triggers, and your transactional emails. Are they up to date? Are they brand compliant? Do they in transactional emails, have you allocated the 20% that you're allowed to do promotional inside of a transactional? Do you have key components of the customer interaction automated and monetized so that you can take advantage of that, right? That's the first thing. The second thing is what's your contingency? What are the things that you're holding in your back pocket that are, I'm not meeting my numbers, and if I don't meet my numbers, I'm going to do X. If you don't have that contingency plan developed, you need to develop that. You may not publicize it. You may come out with it at the last minute. You may circulate it internally. But what is that, oh crap moment? I'm not making my number. Here's how I'm going to adjust this lever, right? The third thing is that do you have your process down so that you have frictionless execution of email? And if you don't, then what can you do ahead of time to do that? So as an example, if you're doing works of art every time you send an email, that's going to slow down your production time. How do you go to a modularized template to make sure that you have less friction in building the email? Do you have a QA step? Do you have redundant steps in case somebody's out sick? Do you have from start to finish? Do you have an established and documented process so that if something does break, if you do make an error, you can on the fly fix it, right? And then that's it. And do you have communication? Do you have differentiation inside of your channels? Do people understand that we're not just doing another email, that we're actually doing an email that makes sense and is strategically as smart as the rest of the media plan? And then there's all kinds of stuff behind that are natural, I think, to every email marketer that's done this before. If you've not experienced an email a holiday before, pick up the phone, call me, call anybody that's been in this industry for as long as I have, and we'll give you some tips. But it's a bolt in. The one thing I'll throw in: schedule in the middle of it a happy hour with your team to go out and to vent and to bond and to just have 3 hours where you're drinking at Buffalo Wild Wings. It is great for morale halfway through the season.
I like that one.
I like that. And invite Ryan and I to join you.
Yeah, please. I'll buy the first round.
There you go. And that usually means we can get him to buy the whole thing. Trust me, folks. I only have one because Ryan's ideas were great and I can't top those. So mine's, again, going back to the vendor side. Going into the holidays, if you're not 100% thrilled with your vendor, here's what I would do. Number one, I would find out when that contract expires. Too many email marketers have no idea when it expires, and they're going, la, 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 we'll do an RFP, and their contract expires in 3 months. So find out when your contract expires. Then I would keep track as you hit those pain points in the holiday season that we talked about earlier. Make a note of them. This wasn't easy. This should be easier. Or we can't even do this. Why not? And come January, you got to sit down and look at that list and speak to vendors like Netcore or speak to people like me or speak to other vendors or speak to people like Ryan and say, is this just, something email marketers have to live with? Or is this something that a more modern platform can make go away? And trust me that depending on which platform you're on, most of your problems can be made to go away. To Ryan's point, some of it may be process, and there's always an outside set of eyes on how you do things can be extraordinarily valuable. Because firms get into, well, it's the way we've always done it. Well, that doesn't mean it's the best way. So outside eyes on that, but a real thorough assessment of your platform's capabilities vis-a-vis others on the market. January is the time to start. January is the time to do that before you get sucked into, now we got Valentine's Day, now we got Mother's Day, now we got Father's Day. So that would be my advice. Keep that list. Know when your contract expires, make a list.
Very good advice. Very good advice. I buy it. Gentlemen, really great stuff. Thank you both very much for joining us today. Sincerely appreciated. Thank you for joining us today. And please do join us next week, same time, same channel for episode 3 of our Holiday Marketing Masterclass. Wishing everyone a wonderful afternoon.